The private security industry is a civil component of security and safety, responsible for protecting many of the nation's institutions, critical infrastructure system, intellectual property, and sensitive corporate information. Kenyan companies heavily rely on private security for a wide range of functions. These services are used in a wide range of markets from commercial to residential.
There will be a daily curfew from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. And this shall be in effect in the territory of the Republic of Kenya, with all movement by persons not authorized to do so, or not being medical professionals, health workers, critical and essential service providers, being prohibited between these hours.
The unprecedented impact of COVID-19 on societies and the institutions has led to a series of extraordinary responses by the Kenyan government. Nairobi Metropolitan being an epicenter for the spread of COVID-19, security providers have been key first responders. To face the pandemic, private security is increasingly called upon to support and complement public forces in core security tasks, such as enforcement of restrictive measures, the protection of health workers, facilities, and guarding of critical infrastructure.
The guards from South Nyanza region have also urged the government to cushion them during the current COVID-19 pandemic, saying it has left them vulnerable to infection, salary pay cuts, and loss of jobs.
Nimeshaishi kwa mara moja na watu wa kafyu. So najua polisi hatabaki kwa polisi na sisi wengine walinzi wanachukulianga chini. So ndio kuja kujitetea, nikajipata mahali penye nimeshawekwa ndani, nimeshawekwa mpingo. Nikapelekwa mpaka station, lakini nikatetewa na kampuni. So tumepitia mambo mingi kando kwa barabara na kafyu. Inabidi mpaka uende na uniform kama umevaa uniform. Kama una uniform, naona maisha ni ngumu.
Usalama Reforms Forum is a civil society organization working in the security sector reforms in Kenya. Currently, we are focusing on what is happening in the private security industry. This is an industry that employs directly or indirectly over 1 million Kenyans, over 700,000 directly employed by companies, and another over 500,000 people working as private security individuals. They are not employed by any company. Okay. During the advent of the endemic COVID-19, there have been cases where there are massive violations of human rights of private guards in the country. So the focus is, what can we do as a society, what can we do as a country to ensure that private security industry is run in a professional manner. Currently, there are guards that are, some of the guards that are, some are in isolation, some have been dismissed because of the excuse of COVID-19. So our focus is, how can we do, or what much can we do to improve the sector in terms of human rights management?
Mahali mimi mwenyewe tulikuwa nafanya watu watatu, lakini ikafika mahali director akatuambia nahitaji mtu mmoja juu ya mshahara. Juu nimefunga kazi, siwezi lipa nyinyi wote na siwezi lipa staff wengine, hata wengine hao wataenda. Nahitaji tu security peke yake. So mimi ndio nikabahatika kubaki. So watu wengi walisimamishwa kazi, lakini hata wenye sisi wenye nilibaki walikuwa wananiambia mshahara yangu lazima ikatwe na 20%, 25%.
We realized that when the companies grew, then there exists the union that is supposed to represent the workers. But there are serious challenges based on our interaction with guards. There are serious challenges about representation. There are companies that haphazardly do not allow guards to join the unions. Then you talk to the guards, they also feel that they are not properly represented by the union. So these are the kind of challenges that we encounter daily. So these are the areas that we are focusing on. How do we ensure that there is proper representation, at least to enhance the voices of the private security guard?
How they eat on a daily basis, it's not your problem. But this time, that is disrupted. You have paid fees. Now you've got to see how this crowd feeds here. And within our system, we have extended family, and in any family unit, you will probably be taking care of 5, 10 people. And if you are in the city, you've got to send money to the rural folks, your mom or somebody else. So this brought a lot of tension in the house. And if you look at the trends, there are families where they lost, spouses to suicide and kids. Some had to go for trauma counseling. And then other family members also, the whole question of quarantine, isolation and so on. Because isolation and quarantine was not being done professionally. It was being used to extort people. So if you are got out there on the road, and the police think that you are not behaving well in terms of giving them some money, because it was a period of what an African writer called Taban Loliong called the season of harvest. So for the police, it was the season of harvest. They simply harvested money from people, and at the slightest excuse, what they would do is, hey, where are you going? Why is your corona on the chin? Where is your mask on the chin? So you would have to cough money, or else they say we are taking you to the quarantine. So many people suffered that. And they were running battles with the police. I saw this a lot in the rural areas and rural towns. In the evening, 1 hour before the curfew, the police have started chasing people around. And it is running battles also. So this brought a lot of things. Of course, the curfew contained the crime in the evening to some extent. But this could not go on for a long. After a while, then the criminals came out even during daytime and started harassing people in the evening, and some of them were suddenly.
Employee anafanya kazi, inakuomba ya kwamba ukaweze kumpatia mshahara wake, hata kama ni kidogo, umpatie in time, ili aweze kumsaidia kuendelesha familia yake akiwa pale nyumbani. Kupitia kwa serikali yetu parliamentary, mahali ambapo kupitia kwa Private Security Regulatory Authority ambayo ilikuwa imewekwa aside ili iweze kuleta mabadiliko katika sekta hii ya security.
Ni wakati hujapewa hizo nguo za kujikinga, na ile hali tulikuwa tunaona kwenye runinga, ukirudi nyumbani madaktari vile wamevalia, na huyo mtu kabla afike kwa daktari amepita kwako na wewe umevalia kijishati tu labda na mask. Sioni kama tulikuwa tumejianika zaidi.
So number one, and speaking broadly across the industries, is I find that security companies were very responsive in being able to provide, number one, masks. If you didn't provide masks, then the officers would not be allowed to report to work. We had a bit of a challenge with somebody getting tired of the mask and having to put it below the chin. Again, the issue of the face shield, and some of them complaining that they were getting headaches. And our work is still very physical, very physically demanding. So for somebody to be those hours, 12 hours in a mask, active on duty, there's quite a strain. So we also had to find ways where they're able to rotate. So the responsiveness of the security companies was quite good, in my opinion. When it comes to the remittances, I would not speak for everybody else, but I know for most companies, and I'd like to speak for ourselves, is yes, we are able to do the remittances, whether it's KRA, whether it's NSSF, and particularly NSSF and NHIF. But what became an ambiguity at this period was for the people who had to be sent on home on unpaid leave. So I'll give you an example. Is what we did first was anyone who had leave days, you exhaust the leave days. Then some of them went on half pay. When it became totally unsustainable, they had to go on unpaid leave. And that is when the law was not very clear as to the deductions. So remember, NSSF is contributory. You contribute 200 and the employer contributes 200. So when you have no income to contribute, that area was left quite vacant. The other challenge that also needed legal interpretation was on NHIF, the National Hospital Insurance Fund. Remember, this is not contributory. this is the employer who normally contributes on behalf of the employee. And we are happy that we're actually lucky that NHIF took up COVID as one of the measures, because the other medical insurance practitioners had said that they will not cover COVID. And for some of us who are very highly labor intensive and at very high risks, remember I mentioned, if one officer at one point is found to be positive, you have to send home or send a big number of 20, 40 people on isolation or on quarantine. You still have to pay them. You still have to pay the incoming team that had to replace them. So the costs were going higher, and the ambiguities of the law was quite wide. What I'm grateful for is that there was an MOU that was struck between the Federation of Kenya Employers, FKE, KOTU, which is the one for the unions, and Ministry of Labor, that now guided employers on the steps to take as you are engaging employees, which is number one, to have a meeting with them and discuss the challenges that are there. Again, agree on measures that were agreeable to both parties in terms of, are you going to go on half pay, are you going to work piece rate, are you going to go on unpaid leave, and that there was consent on both entities.
It was an opportunity for the corrupt, those who want to terminate services and renew contracts haphazardly, without the structured way of doing it, without paying severance pay and compensating workers for that which they have worked for. Now it was an opportunity to send innocent people home, so that now they can re-employ again short-term contracts who don't have that gratuity. So when the government can set a particular category that these people are supposed to be supplement the government essential services, you will remember the doctors and the nurses were being employed more, and even we went to almost a shortage of nurses and doctors. I was expecting again the government should have taken up the role of controlling the private security in the Republic of Kenya under the regulator, so that we can have more cards. Because of what? In terms of interaction, the police and the army, for our research, as I sit in my seat, the private cards, the level of interaction to the public was overwhelming. When everybody has been stopped to move from here and there, the cards were manning heavy human traffic centers like supermarkets. The cards were manning those churches all over. You see, every entry, even those ones that had been actually contracted the virus, they were being supervised by the cards.
Kama mimi niko na familia, niko na watoto, niko na mzee. Sasa inakuwa changamoto tu. Uko na mshikilia mzee na hali. Mshikilia ndio msaidiaje kwa kusaidia. Sasa yake kibi yake, kwa peke yake, mimi na support na wewe kuna kitu ya kufanya. Sasa ni lazima mhangaike, mkate matumizi mengine, muache zingine. Hakuna mali unapata msaada sana. Unajua kama hiyo kabla ingekuwa inatushikilia na kitu kidogo, ingekuwa at least. Sasa hakuna mali unaweza kupata sana. Sasa ni hasa kibia mpaka hiyo pensioni ya mako. By the end of the day kuwe na kitu ya kuweka watoto wanataka kula. Kuna matumizi ya nyumba. Lazima ushikilie mahali. Huwezi kaa tu. Lazima tuanze tutafute kitu ya kufanya. Na kazi kupata ni stress.
Women are they come with special challenges that face them, because aside from work, they have other responsibilities that they need to take care of. You realize after COVID, kids had to stay at home, so those guards who are mothers had to find ways of ensuring that the kids at home are taken care of. There's the issue of employment, turnovers coming in suddenly, and women bear the brunt of the family. So post-COVID, women have had to really carry the brunt of the negative side effects of COVID-19.
Wengine watakudharau. Wanaona wewe ni mama. Wanaona wewe ni dhaifu. Huwezi fanya kitu. Wengine hata atakataa huyo. Sio kazi unafanya.
Women form 50% of the population, and private security as part of essential services, they remain frontliners with the rest of the private security family. So despite the fact that there is the challenge of being an essential service provider, meaning working hours might be a little odd, they were not given special preference like other professions, like maybe teachers who are at home, other HRs, those people who are at home at 6. The essential service providers had to work to ensure that others, they put their work first before their own safety. So the women who are in the front line doing some of these jobs have not had to relent because of COVID-19. They have worked beside their male counterparts, working with the challenges of hours. And yes, because of that, we have had the issues of sexual and gender-based violence that has really come up as a result of COVID-19.
Ukiangalia hapo kwa control room, pia na askari wetu wako armed. But sasa unapata ule mtu anafanya kwa estate sana. Hamna askari, those clients are so tough. Huwezi ambia client kitu akusikize. Kwanza sheria zenye wao wenyewe wametunga zimewashinda kumendeni. Wana expect wewe soja ujaribu mpaka hizo sheria uingie ama upate. Hakuna venye mnapatana, so ukitoka kwako shida, ukirudi kazi shida, unapata askari wengine ida wanajinyonga, wanajitolea uhai. Ndani hiyo response ya tuseme kama venye ule alisema umetaka kuatakiwa na ku at the estate, ule askari anakuja tuseme for example national housing, response ya huko ni mpaka wapi? Lang'ata police station. Tambo gari toke Lang'ata ikifikia hapo NHC, my friend, hata kama ni mtu wa Kibira atakuwa amekuua. For response ya polisi to this private stroke hii company is very slow.
To understand challenges affecting the industry during COVID-19 pandemic in Nairobi Metropolitan area around Nairobi, parts of Kiambu, Machakos and Kajiado counties in the months of September and October 2020, Usalama Reforms Forum conducted the rapid assessment study on strengthening human rights monitoring for private security guards in the months of September and October 2020, targeting private security guards, private security officers, service providers, and members of the public residing in the neighborhood. 86% of respondents indicated that security guards were exposed to health, safety, and security risk related to their work environment, while 14% of respondents did not indicate any work-related risk that security guards faced during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to study, majority being 44% of respondents indicated salary delays, 33% reported salary deduction by employers, 13% of respondents reported withholding of salaries, while 7% of respondents reported inadequate compensation. Only 3% of respondents indicated other forms of labor dispute without specifying them. 60% of respondents did not receive any support from private security providers or any other source. 27% of respondents received little support from private security providers, while 13% of respondents were not aware of any support program given to private security guards during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to data, 39% of respondents indicated unfair dismissal of private security guards. 25% of the respondents reported discrimination of private security guards. 19% indicated harassment of private security guards, while 12% of respondents reported mistreatment of private security guards. Only 5% of respondents reported other forms of violation experienced by private security guards.
My recommendation is that going forward they need to actually train us on how to handle the COVID-19 disease. By training, I mean they need to take us to some kind of preparation before they expose us to this kind of a disease, because when you take us to the field without giving us proper training, is as if you are giving us a death sentence. So, and that one is not good on my side.
Recommendation number 1 is that the government should create a proper compensation scheme or insurance scheme for the private security guards, because they're playing a very, very critical role in terms of security in the country. Second recommendation is that we would propose a sober approach towards the reforms in the industry, because it requires everybody's input so that we can achieve the goals. The third recommendation I would put is that we need to do strong civic awareness among the guards, so that they are aware of the reforms that are taking place in the industry. This we could do as Usalama and other civil society organizations, together with the Private Security Regulatory Authority and Private Security Workers Union, and then the industry associations. We have several associations within this industry that are also playing a very, very important role in streamlining what is taking place.
The government is the biggest consumer of private security services in terms of parastatals, all the other government institutions. They consume actually to the tune of 75%. What I said is that the government supported us in terms of giving us the permission to go and train. But when it comes to financing, that one we did not get. Actually, we had to finance the training from our own security firms, with the government institutions. And when government institutions, employees are working from home, they will also come up with all that. Remember, the whole country, we are talking about economic challenges, impact of the COVID-19. The institutions needed these signatures for them to release the money to the providers. So because that one was not happening, you find that institutions were not paying as promptly as they were supposed to be giving the money. And because of that, then there was no money trickling to the private security firm. Remember, there is also the issue of the assumption that guarding business is a high profit business.
Yes.
But we are having government contracts.
Yes.
How much are they paying? We just need to go there and find out how much these parastatals are paying to the guards. You will be surprised to find that some of them are paying to the tune of 18,000 shillings. Yet they want the guard to be paid 34.
Kwanza kuna ile inaitwa CBO. CBO haijawahi kutekelezwa tangu jadi na iliidhinishwa. Sasa imepatia mwanya matajiri wengine kuanzisha kampuni changa na kuwadhulumu, sababu masaa ya askari walinzi mabawabu wanaingia saa 12 alfajiri, wanatoka jioni saa 12. Yeye ile masaa anafanya na Wells Fargo ama Securex ama hizo kampuni kubwa, masaa yanaoana, lakini mishahara tofauti ni kama mbingu na ardhi. Sasa hiyo CBO kama inaweza kutekelezwa, labda inaweza leta hawa, inaweza leta wote kwa kiwango kimoja, na hiyo itakuwa imesaidia. Pia kuhusiana tu na sheria ambapo vile umeuliza, hii mambo na transfer. Okay, kuna dhuluma mingi sana katika sekta ya ulinzi. Unaweza ambiwa ujiandae leo unaenda Mombasa transfer. Ujue wewe ni mzazi, una familia, umeitayarisha saa ngapi? Halafu pia union ina changamoto yake. Union wanashirikiana na management kugandamiza hawa walinzi. Hawako pale kusaidia walinzi. Hiyo pia kama inaweza angaliwa, na sijui sasa hiyo itaangaliwa vipi. Sababu union ndio lawyer wa mwajiri. Lakini pale union inatumika na management kujaribu kumgandamiza mlinzi. Sasa hapo kunakuwa na changamoto. Ukiambiwa leo unaenda Mombasa, unafaa kucomply. Ukikosa unachujwa. Hapo hakuna notice. Hata unafutwa na summary. Na mwenye anafaa kukutetea ni nani? Ni huyo union na hutamwona. Na pesa zinaingia kwao kila mwisho wa mwezi.
My senior legal officer in this office seems to go and get stay orders, not employer to implement this. Because what he's telling me, the employer is telling me, as a result of COVID-19, he has now decided to change operations of work. It doesn't suit the reasons to dismiss them, because you can only give attendance when when there is no contract, when there is no a place to work. But he's not telling me he has received a notice that from 1st November this contract is no more. He's telling me he wants to reorganize his institution, restructure, so as to make more, to maximize profit. I'm saying no. We cannot send a lot of people home in the name of COVID. Hata wengine wachagojeka COVID, wanasema wamegojeka COVID, wanatuma watu nyumbani. That is wrong. We don't need to use COVID to punish innocent people, because sending about let me say about like in my industry, we have lost about almost 50,000. Yes, who have gone home. That is even more insecurity. Yes. The best way to fight COVID is to make sure people remain where? In employment. The government must come with some kind of strategy to make sure employees maintain jobs. But sending somebody home is creating another COVID-20, leave alone 19, and we cannot allow that. Yes. After COVID, we must also prepare post-COVID what? Period and terms of engagement. We might even say we don't want CBS, because CBS is about the increment of what? Salaries. Now in this scenario, we cannot increase salaries. What you can do, we tell the employer, please get more contracts, but then we reduce what? We levelize the salary to sustain our people for a certain period, 6 months or a 9 period, as we check the COVID thing. Because some of these things is God will come to.
It will come to an end.
An end. There's nothing which is permanent. But already there is a history. Already Kenyans have learned from this one. And the world also has also learned. We must again change and prepare next. Because maybe after this COVID-19, something else will erupt. So we must be prepared for anything, because we are in life. But you cannot say, because of COVID, you don't want to leave.
If we can be able to be in a place whereby we work as one unit, we will still be in a better position. And I believe at the end of the day, being human is what matters most, because there are people like us. They might be doing the security jobs, but again, without them, we wouldn't really be at peace in our houses. For their welfare, like if I would put myself in their shoes, they work for like 12 hours straight. They do not have breaks for tea, for going to the toilet, for having lunch, for being able to be provided for an umbrella when it's raining, or just simple things. A place to wash their hands, a permanent washroom for themselves. They don't have that. And as much as we would like to, it's quite a task to be able to come up with that. Human rights is, like I said earlier, just being able to work with the governments and with other organizations that have these things on board, to be able also to train us, because I can call us a backward generation for now. I hope I'm not heard by a lot of people saying that. But if we can be able to work with people who know the rules and regulations the right way, we can be able to make a better difference for them.
The current president, we should not have had this reform agenda. Now we have our own house in the name of Private Security Regulation Authority. We are going to take all our problems to that office. And you can remember, in the absence of that organization, what do we do? So we are more prepared than yesteryears, you see. And the only person who listens to us is the current sitting president.
To begin with, we need, if there's going to be any change in terms of policy, we need women who are in spaces, in leadership positions that can be able to champion for that. So the first thing that I'd like to recommend is that in the constitution of the, authorities, like we have the Private Security Regulatory Authority, would appreciate if we have a woman's slot there, so that when we are discussing matters to do with training and development, then we can be able to cut a niche that is special for the women. That's the first one. The second one, we appreciate the role of the union, because the union plays a critical role when it comes to highlighting the rights of the workers. They have been very, very open to tell us that they would want to extend an olive branch and see how we can be able to partner and work together. I would wish if again in its constitution there was a representation of women, not just as a desk, but at the decision-making level, then these are deliberate. Because for women, we have to be very deliberate. Right now we are having the 2/3 gender rule being discussed to the point of Parliament being, asked to be dissolved. Because then this is a discussion that is there, but it is not there. So for women to do anything meaningful, there has to be deliberate, purposeful attention. And that can only happen if women sit in decision-making positions in this country.
We have a well-working, functioning regulator, because most of these things have already been alluded in the Act. So the only thing that we need to do is to implement the Act to the letter. Because my analysis is the controversial sections in that particular Act constitutes less than 10%. But the challenge that we normally face as probably interested parties is that we prefer concentrating on the challenges rather than, first of all, implementing the good things which are agreeable to all of us at the end of the day. So if that Act is implemented to the letter and we have a proper regulator, and I tend to believe that this will trickle down to the benefits of the guards at the end of the day. Because most of the issues which normally relate to the human rights are well documented in the Constitution, well documented in the Industrial Acts, well documented in that particular law. So it's just an issue of adhering to Article 10 of the Constitution.